Right. In today's webinar, as part of our regular webinar series, we're going to be diving deeper into the products that were announced as part of Wi-Fi Day back on October 2nd. So we had an opportunity to kind of overview some of those features, but we're going to try to dive a little bit deeper and share some more practical use cases where you can benefit for a lot of those features and functions that have been integrated into some of the Ekahau tools, right? And to get us going here, we have some introductions.
Absolutely. So we've got the myself here, Stu Gumans. I'm the Global Director of Community and Customer Engagement here at Ekahau. And of course, we got my counterpart here, Mr. Troy Martin, who's the Director of Product Marketing and ECSE, or the lab guy, as we like to call him. But he is will be our Spico intros for today. It's Troy, I got to pause here for a second because this always tongue ties me in the intros because I get starstruck even actually just seeing our photos actually on these. Anyways, I'm gonna stop right there.
You just
It's
look
the
so good in
coffee's
black and
kicking
white
in,
there, representing
right?
that hat.
Yes. Well, this
The
is
lab
it.
guy
Yes.
thing, I'd signed up years and years ago on LinkedIn, and this is decades ago, and I used my just a title that I had for where I was working. Just my official title at that organization was lab guy, and so that's what I used on LinkedIn, and it's just kind of it's stuck with me there. All right. So on the webinar today, as I mentioned, we'll be talking about some product news, doing again a recap from some of the things that we mentioned on Wi-Fi Day way back on October 2nd. And some of those things include new products, new features that we've been rolling out. So we'll give you a demo and some explanation of some really cool things that you can find by leveraging the speed test integration that can be found in the survey app on your iOS applications. We'll be talking about the client analysis tool, which is a powerful feature that you can use to identify capabilities of your Wi-Fi clients. And the client analysis tool is a feature available in the Analyzer app that runs on your mobile devices. We'll also talk about a new licensing program that we have, Ekahau Measure Pro. So if you have a large team where you may have some people that you send regularly to the field, whereas back in the office, you have more of your Wi-Fi expertise that do a lot of the design, the analysis, the in-depth review, because you have different people focusing on different tasks. There may be different licensing that you may want to purchase for different members of your team. We'll also talk about some of the multi-technology options that are going to be available very shortly inside AI Pro Online. So that includes the ability within the single product to design networks that leverage private 4G, 5G, BLE, Zigbee for those very interested in IoT technologies, as well as ultra wideband, right? So it's technology that allows for location tracking in great granularity, a lot of devices that may be at your site, or maybe more importantly, as we deploy more and more 6 gigahertz access points, especially operating in standard power mode where they have to interact or report their GPS locations to an AFC provider. Ultra wideband is a technique that can be used by access points to self-locate where they are relative to other access points on the floor, right? And then if some of those access points also can link up with a GPS satellite, they can identify where all the other access points are in your building, right? So it provides a great way to automate that process, which is again required for a lot of AFC programs when operating standard power on 6 gigahertz. And then something that's very cool is we've had 3D planning available in AI Pro Online for some time, but we're adding advanced 3D modeling, right? Which will allow us to do some angled seats, some holes in the floor to represent pools, other objects, and then we model the RF as well in 3 dimensions, right? So we'll walk through some of that as part of today's webinar. So here's the topics that we'll be covering. One thing that wasn't on the previous slide that we'll also throw in here is we're gonna do a little bit of a recap on the speed test certified program, explain a little bit what's going on there and just what speed test certified means. And then we'll wrap it all up with a Q&A. And as Stu mentioned, any questions that we don't address in real time, we'll see if we can pick those up at the end and get those answered for you all. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is speed test integration, right? Which is a feature that's available in the survey app. Okay? And Ekahau, as part of Ookla, allows us to take advantage of our relationship that we have with speed test, also part of Ookla. And we're now starting to integrate some of these features within the products, right? So what this is very cool is while you're walking around doing your survey, within the survey app itself, you can launch a speed test, right? So you can, I'll give you a little demo of this in a couple moments, but you can essentially click a spot on the floor, it'll run a speed test, and you'll see the little graph, little spinning wheel there as it runs through that, doing an upload and a download test. And when it's complete, it'll save the results as a note and link that to the location on the floor from which point you are doing the speed test data, right? So it saves it, it integrates that within your project file, right? And it gives you a great opportunity for you to validate the performance of that wireless network around you. Now, the interesting thing to keep in mind with speed test is really what we're doing is we're blasting as much traffic that we can to try hit a maximum rate of that network. So we're essentially we're stress testing your wireless network at that point, right? And the traffic that's produced may be much higher than what a typical application use would be for a client device in that site. And that's okay. We're just trying to get a baseline for sort of what the maximum capabilities are in that location based on the access point that you're connecting to, right? So depending if it's a 2x2 or a 4x4 spatial stream access point, depending on what data rates are enabled, what amendments it supports, so whether it's N capable, AC, AX, BE, right? We're also starting to see Wi-Fi 8 access points were just recently announced, so we may see them start to roll into the market pretty quick, right? But with that baseline, it gives you a sense of what the maximum capabilities are. And then down the road, if there are trouble tickets that are opened, you can return to that same location and you can run another speed test and compare those results with the ones that you had previously to see if they're in the same ballpark in terms of performance results or if they've diminished, right? And if you're getting lower speed test results, that gives you some indication that, yeah, there most likely is a problem, and you can dive deeper into trying to figure out what the source of that is, right? So we were just recently at a site walking around doing some speed tests at a few different locations. And we were consistently getting between 150 and 200 megs. That was pretty much the result of every speed test that we were running. But at one particular room that we were in, we saw speeds of around around 90 megs, 90 to 100 megs, just below 100 meg threshold, but still substantially lower than all the other test results that we're getting. And what that we flagged that as an issue, and the fact that it was just below 100 became an interesting number for us. And we ended up diving deeper into this. The AP connecting to that switch, for whatever reason, it had negotiated at 100 megabits per second, right? So because we were getting speed test results just below an interesting number like 100, that's one way that we were able to identify that that access point was not negotiating at 1 gig with the switch, right? So it's just another way of visualizing or detecting some issues that you might find in your network, right? So the way the speed test works is you can walk around while you're doing your survey in and out of various rooms, right? So a typical continuous survey, collecting data, leveraging your sidekick to get those accurate measurements, right? So you keep walking around and you can periodically stop or pause your survey, launch into a speed test survey, or you may pre-identify locations that you want to run some speed tests from. These may be mission critical areas of your floor, high usage meeting rooms that you might want to leverage, right? Um, so we have a little demo here that walks you through this. But instead of checking out these slides here, maybe I'm going to move into just a live demo here. And I'm just going to switch to my screen and see if I can get it connected, see if this will pop up. And I'll just show you what this looks like. So here we have my iPad device that I'm connecting to. I've opened up a floor plan. Sorry, right. Open up a little floor plan here. And typically you'd be in survey mode, walking back and forth. You can run, your autopilot, continuous stop and go GPS. This particular iPad, it's an iPad mini. So it's not the pro version of the iPad, and therefore it doesn't support the LiDAR cameras. And because LiDAR camera is not supported on this particular hardware, that's one of the reasons we don't see Just Go listed across the top as one of the survey methods, right? So if you're familiar with our Just Go survey technique, that does require that LiDAR camera and the Pro series of the hardware, but it self-detects that it's not capable of this on my iPad mini, right? So I'd pause my survey from this screen here and I'd flip to the view mode. And from view, I can visualize a lot of my different heat maps. So I can turn on my primary and my secondary signal strength. I can look at some rogue APs or rogue interferers that I've identified, right? And then there's a series of black circular buttons that we can see. And the one on the bottom is our speed test button. So if we were to click on that speed test button, we're then prompted to pick a location on the floor that we want to run a speed test from. So if I pick right in the middle of the room, the center of that sort of conference area there, I tap that and immediately it launches into running a speed test for me, right? So I can see the downstream direction. I get a little visual of feedback on that graph. I wait a few seconds for that to finish. It'll automatically transition into running an upload test, right? I also get information with respect to my round trip time, any jitter information that's there, right? And I can see how consistent the speed is, right? So if there's some interference, or if there's a series of retries, or as an example, if I was rate limited on this particular connection, good indication that you're being rate limited would be an initial very high peak or a spike in performance, and then that would quickly be throttled down to something like maybe 5 megs or 10 megs, right? So an initial burst and then being hard locked down to like a consistent value, like a human interpreted number like 5 or 10 megs, good indication that you're constrained there. Once the speed test is done, very important that you click on the Save As Note. And when I do that, it saves a note for me on the floor where I ran that speed test, and the icon changes so I can identify, different map notes that have saved different comments on the floor plan, or if it's speed test result itself. And if I click on that speed test result, right, I can see the results of that speed test, right? So how fast it was, my jitter, my loss, the BSSID that I was connected to, the name of the network, the SSID. So I could test multiple SSIDs from the same location. I could also go back to this point in the future, click on the speed test button right in the comment field. And if I click on that button again, it'll launch another speed test from the same location. And when that data or when this test is finished running, it'll add that note, it'll append it to this existing note, right? So I can keep collecting speed test data points from the same location. So this may be something that I want to do on a regular basis, once a week, once a month, once a year, whatever your auditing or your surveying policy is, you can line this up. Or every time you go out for a troubleshooting engagement, you can collect some more data just to see if it was comparable to the last speed test result. And again, save this as a note, and it just adds it back to that comment. So that's just an example of how we can leverage speed test within the survey apps on our mobile devices. So let me stop sharing here. Yeah.
So one of the questions does the speed test using the iPad Nick or the SK2? And that's a great
Yeah, great.
question, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so for those of you who weren't aware or are not aware, the Sidekick 2 does not transmit, right? So it's a passive listen-only device, right? So as a result, it's your iPad. It's the wireless NIC on your iPad that needs to be connected to the wireless network. It is the source of the speed test data, right? So it is traffic that's originated from your iPad itself using that wireless NIC. Okay, so I did a little demo here. The next thing we're going to talk about is troubleshooting some connectivity issues, right? So this slide here comes from our troubleshooting class, where we do talk about many of the common factors that can contribute to a negative Wi-Fi experience, whether it's performance, just getting connected, slowdowns, right? And then we talk about ways that you can identify the root cause of those issues and then optimize your network to improve performance for those on your network, right? So again, those 9 common Wi-Fi fails. And here's one scenario of a situation that could occur on many of your networks, and it's related to client devices, right? So in this particular warehouse, we had Matt and Mac performing a survey. So they're walking around and they designed a pristine Wi-Fi network for this warehouse environment, right? They were pretty pleased with the work they'd done, but there was one particular device that was struggling to connect, right? And so they wanted to try isolate the reason for that one specific device model that was having issues, right? Whereas everything else was working fine. And they'd done their survey. They had excellent primary and secondary signal strength everywhere, so it didn't seem like it was a coverage issue. The device itself was hearing the signal quite loud, right? So that device that was struggling, it didn't seem to be having a lack of signal, right? So then they started diving into packets, right? And it turned out that device that it was being periodically disassociated from the network, right? So it would get a little flag that was set saying, "Hey, you're about to be kicked off the network." You know, the disassociation imminent flag was being set, right? And so I wanted to try figure out why that was happening, right? So they started jumping into packet analysis, right? And to do that, right? They pulled out their Sidekick 2. They leveraged the Analyzer app on the mobile device and they configured the Sidekick to capture traffic on channels, right? So with the Sidekick 2, you can scan up to 4 channels at a time in parallel. You can configure it to capture more than 4 channels, but then it time slices, right? So just be mindful of that. Now, when you're performing a packet capture, there's a series of steps involved, right? So one of the first things you need to do is you need to configure the Sidekick to capture on a particular channel, right? Which we just showed you the configuration on how to do that. Before you know what channels to scan, you may want to open up Network Overview just to see what channels your client device is connecting on so that you can set the Sidekick to capture on those particular channels, right? We want to verify that we are receiving traffic on those different channels. We'll launch the packet capture itself, capture the data that relates to the issue that we're seeing, right? So we want to let that run for a while as we recreate the issue. Then we have to share that capture. We have to transfer it onto a different machine, right? We can then launch and open up a packet analysis tool, something like Wireshark, right? So they're not super complicated steps per se. It's just a number of steps that you just need to go through to capture the packets and then ultimately open up in a packet analyzer, right? So here is just an example. You're using the network overview tool inside the analyzer application. We'd open this up just so that we can identify what channel the access point that we care about is operating on so that we can configure our Sidekick correctly. Then we launch into the packet capture utility. We'd select the 1, 2, or more channels that we're interested in captures. We'd start that capture, always a warm fuzzy to see that the size of the file we're capturing increase. That lets us know that we're actually capturing traffic. And then we'd share that project via AirDrop, Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, lots of different options on how you can share that project. But as soon as you finish the packet capture, it's immediately transferred from the Sidekick onto your iOS device, right? And then that PCAP is saved on the iOS device itself. And then you can, because it's saved there, you can share it down the road or you can share it immediately, right? So periodically, you may want to go into your iOS device and just do a cleanup of past packet captures, past PCAP files that you've collected. Otherwise, that may end up consuming a lot of storage space on your mobile device, right? Ask me how I know that. Too many packet captures stored on my iPad. Right. Once we've transferred it onto our machine, we can then open up Wireshark. And then it's that question of, looking for that frame. Maybe it's that one single frame, that needle in a haystack that gives you that insight into what's causing the issue in your particular environment, right? So again, a few steps, and as mentioned, not particularly hard, but you need to make sure you go through that process. And the one thing that we're showing here is kind of a weird behavior, right? So as client devices connect to the network, right, there's a state machine that they have to progress through to get connected. And so initially they have to do a discovery process, right? And that discovery process could involve listening to beacon frames advertised by the access point, or we can have the clients take an active approach and transmit probe request frames. And in that probe request frame, clients will advertise a lot of their capabilities, right? So what security settings they support, how many spatial streams, what amendments, various other things, right? And then once they've decided on an access point to connect to or a radio to connect to more specifically, they'll then send an authentication frame and an association frame. And what we're showing here in this comparison side by side is both the probe request and the association request frames are both frames that reveal the capabilities of the clients, but in this image, it's not reporting the same capabilities, right? So in the probe request, the client is reporting itself as one spatial stream capable. In the association request frame, the client's reporting itself as two spatial stream capable, right? So there's inconsistencies in what the client reports itself, right? So that's a little bit of an odd behavior. So it's that association request frame that seems to be the most truthful of all frames, right? Um, Now you can leverage AI as part of your troubleshooting process. You can ask it some questions. Ask it, why would a Wi-Fi client have different results in its pro request frame versus association frame? Here, ChatGPT certainly responded with an answer, but if you were to read through this, I'm not sure this answer really makes sense, right? So you probably have to dive a little bit deeper into this and make sure you truly understand what's happening with the Wi-Fi itself. And this is where we can take advantage of this client analysis feature, right? So a new feature that we've just introduced. And the idea here is that you can bring any client device within range of your Sidekick. You'll have a couple tabs across the top. You can change the way that the information is organized and presented and which columns you see. My preference is to look at this expanded tab, the view that we see here. And some client devices will be far away, right? Because there'll be many client devices around you. Some will be, a moderate distance, and some will be very nearby, right? We can also validate that we're connecting or that we're going to inspect the correct clients, double checking it's connecting to the access point that we expect on the SSID that we think it should be connecting to. And then we can also confirm the MAC address of the client to make sure that's the one that we're actually looking at. All right, so just here's an example of that. You bring your client close to the Sidekick, right? It detects it as one that's nearby. So you can select that client then from the list based on the access point and the client MAC address, right? And then by drilling into that access or drilling into that client, we can then start to see information about that client's capabilities, right? So what channels it supports. Not all clients support the full list of 5 gigahertz channels. And if you have channels advertised on your access points not supported by your client devices, that could create coverage holes across your environment, right? Where they may not roam seamlessly. They may have periodic connectivity. That could be an issue. They could have challenges with channel width that's being set. You can validate features like if you turn on management frame protection from a security posture that you want to implement across your wireless network. If client devices don't support MFP, they may have troubles connecting, right? Now, one thing to be mindful of as we do this test, and I want to emphasize that the clients can lie. And sometimes what they'll do is if the network isn't fully configured with all the features the client supports, the client will then sort of downplay their capabilities and they won't report their full feature set, right? So we do give you a warning inside the application that if you initially inspect a client and maybe it says that features like, 11R or management frame protection or 11K and V are not enabled, you need to connect to an SSID or a radio that has those features enabled, right? So this is where you need control of the access points or the radio, and you can turn on those features. And once you've enabled that, if you disconnect your client from the network and have it reconnect, the software from Ekahau, the client analysis tool, it'll automatically scan and look for those association request frames. And once it captures them, it'll then report the more accurate capabilities of the client. All right. So what you're seeing on the screen here is just that warning message that on the initial discovery of the client, it may not be connecting to an SSID that's fully featured. Right. So you may want to turn on those features just to test out your client. And then once you've done that, you can see all those that additional information that your client may be capable of. And if you were to keep scrolling down in the client analysis tool, you'd see additional information like the MCS rates that were supported, retry percentages. We also start counting the number of management frames, control frames, and data frames that are sent across the airwaves. So it gives you some insight to the ratios of traffic types, right? So it may be surprising, or that may give you a path to troubleshoot issues on your network by seeing that there's a massive spike in management traffic relative to control traffic. Or maybe there's way too much data with no control traffic because you're missing a whole bunch of acknowledgements that aren't coming back in one particular direction, right? So pretty cool tool that allows you to pinpoint some issues, whether it's leveraging speed test integration to make that happen, right? Or just checking out how your wireless network is configured. By looking at network overview, you can quickly spot to see if there's some access points that may be outside your RF group, or you've misconfigured a policy to an access point. Maybe it's in a different area. You have some outdoor APs, you wanted a different configuration. We were just recently at a site, and it was a hotel. They placed access points in the rooms, but they also had APs in the hallways, right? So they want to have some good roaming as you walked out of the room, down the hallway, walking towards the elevator. But because they had in-room and hallway-based APs, they had configured the hallway APs to use 40 megahertz wide channels and the in-room AP to be 20 megahertz wide channels, right? Um, which initially some people wouldn't think too much of this, but if you start reading a lot of behaviors or algorithms that are built into client devices, some client devices and iOS devices are one of those. They have a bias or preference for wider channels, right? And they end up getting sticky to those wider channels. So as you get out of the elevator and walk down the hallway, connecting to those APs that are providing 40 megahertz, very wide channels, when users walk into their rooms, and some of the rooms had APs inside the rooms themselves, client devices would stay sticky to those APs in the hallways, hanging on to that 40 megahertz wide channel, and they'd be reluctant to roam into the APs, even in the same room, which is just on 20 megahertz. Right? And then we have the client analysis tool, which allows you to identify the capabilities of client devices that are connecting to your wireless network, right? And we tried to make it easy so you didn't have to go through the whole process of collecting all those packet captures and applying a filter in Wireshark to look through the association frame and then reading through all those capabilities. You simply have to bring that client device within close proximity of the Sidekick. You'll see that client automatically bubble up to the top of your list. You simply click on that client device, and then you can see the capabilities of that client device and understand if it's having issues connecting to your network because maybe you've enabled too many features that are not compatible with that client, right? Or you may want to look at turning on some things to improve some performance for your users connecting to your WLAN. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about here is Ekahau Measure Pro, right? And the idea here is if you have a larger team of users, right? So scenario, maybe you're a 5-person team. For redundancy purposes, you may have two experts on staff, right? So these are the people that have been working on Wi-Fi for years. They're the ones that work on all the Wi-Fi designs. If there's ever a trouble, they're the ones doing the in-depth analysis, right? And you could have a very distributed environment, right? With many different sites spread across the country. And then you have a team of field resources, right? These are the people that you can send to sites, send out in the field. They're the ones out there collecting the data, right? But they don't necessarily have the in-depth Wi-Fi knowledge, but they're in a role that they can travel out to sites, collect that data using a Sidekick 2 and a mobile application. Once they've collected that data, they can easily share that project back to your Wi-Fi experts back at a central office, right? And what we have here is just the model where we don't have to buy the full Ekahau AI Pro licensing for all of the users on the team, right? There's a more cost-effective license, the Ekahau Measure Pro license, which allows users to take a Sidekick and just use the survey and the analyzer app on their mobile device to collect that data. They can still visualize the heat maps that are available inside the survey app so they can validate the data that they've collected. They can do some initial diagnosis to see if there's any issues. But the intention there is that they're out measuring, right? They're just out collecting data, right? And then they can send that back to the central office, right? So just a comparison of some of the different features here. If you were to acquire the full Ekahau product suite, so Ekahau Connect, giving you access to the desktop application, Ekahau AI Pro Online to do the full design analysis, basically, and use the tools in the mobile application, right? So you have the full features, full functionality, right? And you get a list of all the features supported within that. Or you can simply purchase the Ekahau Measure Pro, right? Ekahau Measure Pro, again, for those field teams, giving you access to the survey and analyzer app on your mobile device, allowing you to collect data, perform packet captures, do some spectrum analysis, complete a survey, launch the network overview or the client analysis tool, and just collect data in the field, right? And you still have access to the latest feature and firmware updates that are available for the survey and analyzer apps, or if there's new firmware that gets released for your Sidekick 2, you can download that as it becomes available. And of course, if there are any issues that you experience out in the field, you have access to Ekahau support, whether it's the full Ekahau product suite or Ekahau Measure Pro, right? And one of the best ways to reach out to Ekahau support is to just send an email to support@ekahau.com. Right. Also, now talking specifically about Ekahau AI Pro Online, we're introducing some advanced 3D modeling features, right? And so all the features that we're talking about today either already exist in the product. So if you download the latest version of the survey app and the analyzer app, you'll see in the survey app, speed test is now available today. Or if you download the analyzer app, you'll see that client analysis is available within the analyzer application, right? But what I'm going to show you here are a few features that are being rolled out this month. So in October, you'll have access to these. Before the end of the month is out, before Halloween, the spooky season comes into play, you'll have access to the advanced 3D modeling within Ekahau, which will allow you to design things like staircases, angled seatings in stadiums. You'll be able to build overhangs across various structures and then rotate and visualize that in 3 dimensions to see exactly what's going on in your RF model, right? So this allows you to implement more accuracy, view things in multiple planes from multiple angles. And of course, Ekahau will model all the reflection off those surfaces to build the most accurate and detailed heat maps so you can make sure that you're looking at the coverage that you'd expect to see once you deploy your access points. We're also adding multi-technology planning. So as I mentioned earlier, within Ekahau AI Pro Online, you'll be able to easily design and plan for private 4G or 5G if you wanted to deploy that across your enterprise, or maybe more useful across, a smaller university campus or a college campus, something like that. You'll be able to design for BLE, placing tags and access points across your site, making sure that you have the appropriate coverage to track various objects, right? Or maybe collect some information from clients that have their BLE radios turned on, if you wanted to integrate that with some other technology solutions. For those looking at IoT, right? So a lot of buildings are using Zigbee devices for automated building control, whether that's opening up HVAC systems to control heating and cooling. They could be communicating with the lighting systems, opening up various blinds or closing blinds, depending on the time of day, to either let more sunlight in or keep the sunlight out because it's heating up the building too much. Those systems often run over Zigbee, right? So Zigbee, 2.4 gigahertz base technology, we can now add that into our RF models just to make sure that wherever we place our Zigbee gateway, it'll be able to communicate with all those other Zigbee nodes that are placed throughout our environment. And then lastly, we're also going to be including this month the ability to add and see notes or attachments that are part of our project files, whether it's a map note that we've added to our project, describing what the ceiling looks like, or some images that we took of the network closets that have pictures of our switches. If we wanted to document how many switch ports are being consumed or that we still have available, if we wanted to expand our wireless network and include all those details as part of our project. So all these features are being included and will be rolled out this month. Right, so in that 3D modeling, great feature for now visualizing inclined stairs, drawing those, getting that set up so you can create your stadiums, whether it's proper football, hockey, or a basketball game, you can do that, which makes it much better. And as part of the advanced 3D modeling, right, you can start creating holes in the floors or multi-tiered levels, right? So you could have a raised stage, or maybe at a hotel, you could have a pool that you could then model if there's a lowered section in the floor, something like that. We were just out at a restaurant the other night, and it was a little bit of kind of a odd setup. They had a lot of plants. It was like they were trying to transpose you into a different environment, but they had a bunch of pools laid out through their restaurant, right? And so the tables would be set up alongside the pools. The pools would be about a meter high above the ground. And so if there was access points radiating RF energy, there's a good chance these larger pools could be absorbing some of that RF energy, reducing the coverage that you have. So you may want to model these raised pools where the people sitting at tables are actually down below the water levels, sitting and eating beside the pools where they have some fish swimming in them. Okay. You can also create lowered sections, as I mentioned with the pools, and then create the attenuation for the body of whatever fills in that content, whether it's just a body of air or some fluid. This also helps if you have more complex manufacturing environments, where you could have fluid passing through pipes or being stored in various tanks. Just creating a much more accurate RF model so that you know exactly where you want to place the access points. That multi-technology, you can add in, again, Bluetooth, ultra wideband, private 4G, 5G, Zigbee technologies can all be analyzed. And we're looking at adding even more wireless technologies to the system, but these are the ones that are coming out this month here in October. Right. And as I mentioned earlier, the notes that you'll then be able to add. So any images that you take of the access points, how it's mounted, installed, you'll be able to see that note, look at any comments you made with that, and look at the image within AI Pro Online. And then you'll be able to include those details with your drag and drop customized reporting that you can leverage inside AI Pro Online to generate a Word document or a PDF of the data that you've collected, and then share that with the installation team or with the executive or the decision maker or an end client or customer to let them know that the network meets their requirements, or here's a summary of our recommendations following a troubleshooting engagement. All right. Now, the last thing here that I want to talk about before we wrap up the webinar today is I just want to talk about speed test certified, right? And the idea here is if you look at the hotel and travel accommodation industry, right? Wi-Fi is quickly becoming one of the most important decisions that guests are making in deciding, do they stay at the hotel on the left side of the street or the hotel on the right side of the street, right? Because people need to stay connected, right? Whether they're taking business meetings while they're staying in the hotel, checking their email, responding to customer issues, right? Or maybe they're staying more on vacation, just relaxing, and they want to check out one of the video streaming applications, right? And make sure that the good connectivity there, that their video is not constantly pausing and being buffered or downgrading the quality of their video feed. They want a good experience, right? And that's driven by fast, reliable Wi-Fi networks, right? And in order to quantify that, right, we need Wi-Fi that follows best practices in terms of design standards, right? Making sure that they're designing for appropriate primary and secondary signal strength thresholds, that they're designing to meet the appropriate SNR targets. They're putting in modern access points, configuring appropriate channel widths, managing channel interference. But it doesn't just stop at Wi-Fi, right? You need to also make sure that the entire network supports enough capacity on the network to have a good experience. You could have the best Wi-Fi network in the world, but if your WAN uplink is only a 5 meg pipe, right, no one connecting over Wi-Fi is going to have a good time, right? So in addition to making sure that we have sufficient Wi-Fi capacity, we have to make sure that we also have enough WAN capacity to support the number of users and the amount of bandwidth that'll be consumed by the applications we expect users to be using, right? So another example of if you think about a video streaming application, right? You may need upwards of 5 megs, maybe even 15 megs, depending if it's a high definition or 4K quality. A lot of these days, families don't necessarily like talking to each other. So if there's a family of four that all checked into the same room, mom and dad and a couple kids, right? If they don't like talking to each other, they'll pull out their mobile device and each one of them starts streaming a video feed to that mobile device. So now in each room, if you needed 15 megs per device, you need 60 megs of capacity per room in your hotel, right? So you need to make sure that you've designed enough Wi-Fi capacity as well as the necessary internet backhaul to support those bandwidth demands. And this is where speed test certified comes in, right? It's a method that's uses comprehensive data-driven data to measure the user experience and guarantee performance, right? And so we're not only just looking at Wi-Fi metrics, we're looking at that full end-to-end connection, making sure that your network pipe is set up correctly. Also checking out things like redundancy. Does that building, that location, does it have redundant internet feeds, maybe from different providers, right? Does it come in from the building entrance in different ways, right? How is the Wi-Fi network configured? How many SSIDs are enabled? What is your signal strength coverage, right? We're leveraging the power of speed test, right, to run some performance tests, right? So although it has speed test in the name and we're leveraging that brand recognition, we're looking at many, many different data points, aggregating them all together and coming up with a score to see if it has a minimum acceptable performance guarantee to earn the speed test certified designation, right? And based on this test, we'll also provide recommendations on what you could do to improve your network performance, right? There's always things you can do. But the point is, We want to push the standard, drive it out into industry, so that when you walk into a hotel, a stadium, a conference center, that if you see this plaque on the outside of the wall, that you know that there's a minimum threshold of performance that you can expect from this environment, which should result in an excellent user experience when connecting over Wi-Fi, right? And so again, as I mentioned, it's not just running speed tests at a whole bunch of different locations. That's just one part of the test that we're looking at. It's many different aspects. And then we run this through a comprehensive model that weights and scores all the different metrics based on the venue types. We're simulating that real world performance with the speed test. And of course, speed test kind of pushes wireless networks to their maximum capabilities. But based on the information that we're collecting, we can then interpret what the experience should be like when running typical applications that you'd see on various user devices, right? And then also looking at redundancy, right? What happens if access points start failing, switches start failing, or even the internet feeds itself starts failing? How would that impact the design and the ultimate user experience, right? So if this is something you find interesting, the world of speed test certified, right? If you're interested in having your site speed test certified so that you can then guarantee performance to users that come to your venue, check out the QR code on the left-hand side, see what's involved there. But if your interest kind of perked up there, maybe you work for a professional services organization. Maybe it occurred to you that, hey, all these networks will need to be audited, right? They need to be accredited to see if they're compliant with speed test service certified requirements. So we'll need partners around the world to be able to perform this service, this professional services work. And so in next year, in 2026, we will be launching a training program to start ramping up professional services organizations to become certified network assessors, excuse me, which will allow you to walk around and then assess other networks and determine and evaluate if they meet the requirements to become speed test certified, right? So it could be another revenue stream for your professional services organization. So if you want more details about that, click on the QR code in the right-hand side, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And stay tuned for further announcements about the training program to get more people certified up to become speed test certified network assessors. Right. And with that, that'll bring us up to the Q&A portion of the class there. And I'm sure Stu's been busy in the background answering any questions there. But if there's any that are outstanding, let's hear any of those.
So we did have one, and this kind of, and I'll give a brief answer on this one. You might want to follow up with this one, Troy. Is
Mhm.
we get a lot of questions every once in a while. Is that you've developed all these cool three-dimensional tools within the AI Pro Online app? Is that going to make its way to the desktop? And the short answer is yes, um, but it's going to take just a little bit. But it is on the way.
Yeah, so one thing to emphasize there, and one of the things that's somewhat unique to Ekahau, is not only do we have a cloud-based solution, but we also have that desktop solution, right? And we do have some customers, for whatever reasons, cloud is not the path forward to them, which is not a problem. We'll continue to have a desktop application, and we will bring those features into the desktop world. So that is something that's coming, and we will continue to support both cloud and desktop.
And I believe that was about it. I grabbed a couple of the other ones. Android version was basically the topic of conversation over a few of the guests online today. And I do know on good authority that we are investing a little bit more efforts on the Android version for both Analyzer and Survey. So I would say as an Analyzer, I believe Troy Analyzer is coming out first, I think, and then followed by some more enhancements to Survey. But I believe the Analyzer is getting a little bit more love, actually.
Yeah, there is a disparity between iOS and Android. iOS does get more love. You do see the features rolled out first in iOS, but we are filling in that difference to make them parallel in terms of capabilities and the features that are supported in Survey and Analyzer. But we are starting to turn our attention, turn the eye, so to speak, and focus on adding capabilities into the Android version of the software.
Yep. Oh, and we've got one more that came in. How long does it take to do a survey? About 3,000 square meters office. Ooh. I'd like to say that depends, but
Yeah, that should you should be able to do that within a day for an office there. Now, Stu mentioned it depends. There's a lot of factors involved in there, right? So depending on how you approach that, um, one of the worst case scenarios for Wi-Fi signal propagation is if the doors are all closed, right? So while you're doing that survey, if you walk into every room, make sure the door is closed behind you, right? If I'm doing a continuous survey, right? I would click because I'm stopping in front of the door. It may be closed, locked already, or I may have to scan a badge, use keys to get into that room. I click while I stop and get the door open. Once I prop open the door, I click to start moving. I walk into the room, click, and let the door close behind me. Once that door is closed, now I stand in the room or I walk deeper into that room for 5 or more seconds just to collect data with that door closed. Now, some offices have very thin doors. It's not a significant change when that door shuts, right? As much as let people like to think it is. Other offices are full solid oak doors, right? Where the door itself could be a 8 or a 10 dB door on the extreme kind of side of things.
yeah,
Some offices have metal doors. One particular office I was at, everyone had a little cubicle office, but it was floor to ceiling glass walls everywhere, right? And glass is one of those materials where it may be very thin from an RF perspective, or it could be incredibly thick depending on what metal coating or a material they put in the glass to limit sunlight or heat propagation, or if there's bulletproof glass, anything like that. So it could be highly there could be high attenuation related to that material. So it could take a while to move through that office environment, just depending on the nature of the size of offices, how many little rooms you needed to go into, how many large office meeting room spaces you had. Um, so that'd be a factor going into it. You could also kind of gauge based on the square meters, just how long it may take you to walk that distance, right? That would give you at least a minimum baseline of how long it takes you to walk a kilometer on what you could do for that. So just as a data point, we just finished walking a site. I can't remember what the square meters were, but we walked 12 kilometers doing our survey pass. So it was 12 kilometers of continuous survey data. It took a team of three of us. It took us a day to complete that, right? So three teams walking 12 kilometers. We were able to complete that in 8 hours, just as a data point to kind of look at some of those numbers.
that's a lot of walking.
It was, yeah. I bought new shoes just for that survey, and that was a mistake. I should have broke them in. My feet were not happy with me. Had to go get some Band-Aids.
Oh, right, exactly. And I think it's important to remember, like, if you have large offices and you want to cover a lot of ground, that's where the Measure Pro licensing comes into play and helps you out, right? And then having additional sidekicks and whatnot to measure. We do have one more question here, just at the kind of the top of the hour, I believe. And this is actually a great one. It's from Michael here. Is that how is the report generated from the site survey if we do not have experts in the back office?
Yeah, so in Ekahau AI Pro Online, there is a reporting feature that you can now leverage, right? And to kind of help people that don't have a lot of Wi-Fi knowledge, we do provide four default templates, right? So one template focuses on the information that you may need to share with your installation team. One focuses on what you may want to prepare for a RF predictive design. One is for a validation survey, And the fourth one is for a troubleshooting engagement. So there's four templates that you can look at that are pre-built in there. You can simply run those if you want, or you can look at how the drag and drop report is built out, and then you can modify that or tweak it. You can't change the templates themselves, but if you wanted to make a change, you can just save that as a new report that's then stored and linked to your account within AI Pro Online, right? So that's probably the best way to kind of dive into reports if you're not really familiar with what content you want to share or how to go about creating it. Just take a look at those templates, and the title of the templates is pretty self-explanatory. You'll see what the focus is of the content that's included in that report template itself. And then lastly, once you've customized your template and saved your own, you can easily share that template with other Ekahau AI Pro Online users, right? So now your team can take advantage of any customizations that you've done.
Yeah, and here's just a kind of a little quick look of what that does look like, what Troy was mentioning, right? The kind of the layout here is from the default templates and how you connect. So this is kind of the cool view here that he's talking about. And when we're in oops, I pressed it too quickly here. There's a number of different default reports here. Like you've got your installation report, your predictive design, your troubleshooting, and your validation. And so it'll all have all the metrics ready to go for you, so you don't have to worry about what it is you need to select. But if you were to do something creative and do something yourself, one of the cool things you can do is when you're choosing it, you can actually just start dragging and dropping the things that you want. I can put in the content. Maybe I want to put in the cover page, the map. I can go through all these different things, but you think, well, wait, that's not very many things. But actually, it's more than you think. So when you're looking at kind of device configurations, you can add multiple pieces of these. And when you go in there, you can actually start to configure individual pieces of that. So if you're looking for simulated or measured, you can go in and configure each one, add another context, and so on and so on. So at the end of the day, that when you generate your report, you've got something really cool to look at, and then it brings it out right away. Or I could save a template. I can save as a new plate template, copy it, and then it'll open up as a PDF right away after that, and or a docx. So if you wanted to kind of edit that in a document form. Now it may not show up on the share here. Oh, it might be actually right there, but it goes through and gives you kind of a quick thing that you can go through and see where you'd be planning for access point. There you
Yeah,
go.
so
And
super cool, very customizable. Leverage the templates to try to figure out how it gets organized, and you can then modify those. Or like Stu showed, you can just build it from scratch via the drag and drop and create the template that shares the information for the story that you want to tell for the reader. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining Stu and myself on this webinar. I hope everyone has a great rest of their week. And as Stu mentioned, first thing on the call here, if you haven't already, please join our Slack group. The link was there in the chat, so you can see that. And if you have any further questions or want to continue the conversation, we'll see you there, or maybe we'll see you in person at the next conference or Wi-Fi related event.
and for those that are in the Asia Pac region, of course, what this call is out, we will be in Melbourne, Australia at Cisco Live. So look for us there for a booth there, and we'll have a team out there this year again. So we're all ready to get to support you and bring your ideas, any cool things you guys are working on, and how may we help you and to enhance our product because we want to hear from you.
All right, take care all.